Hey, good morning.
Good morning. How are you doing?
I am doing really well. Just frustrated as heck about, my buyer's offers not getting accepted, even as high as we're writing out here with escalation clauses, and they're being beaten out by offers that are even 100,000 over them, and we're already 100 over asking.
Well, I will tell you that somebody I knew, their listing went $300,000 over asking. It's a little crazy.
But we had one down here. They asked at $999, and he said he knew it was a little underpriced. They had 58 offers and sold at 1,675.
Jeez. They knew it was a little under. Is that what you were saying, John?
Yes.
Oh, jeez.
But a little
crazy nowadays.
Hmm?
I said that's crazy nowadays.
It is. I mean, when my listings all get multiple offers, and I understand that. And this agent just and he called me today and he says, I hate making these conversations. I said, well, when you start with that, I know what the answer is. I said, but even with our escalation clause and appraisal contingencies are waived, inspections are dropped down to 10 days. I said, the only thing we really have is a loan contingency, which we've basically almost got a DU on it. And I guess I could really go in without the loan contingency as well.
Wow. Yeah, I know a lot of people are trying to take away the loan contingency, but can you guys really actually do that?
It depends how you structure the time frames. Yeah, if you can get an approval before you have to release an inspection contingency, maybe that's a way to do it. Same thing with the appraisal contingency. You need to know before if there is a contingency, right, remaining.
If there is, oh God, that sounds so crazy. Yeah, and the appraisal contingency, you can't waive that, can you? If you're getting a loan?
No, you can.
Oh, sure.
You have to pay the difference in that and make up the gap.
Which I thought you didn't have to worry about doing that. Like when you say make up the gap, is that because?
I tried to put on the list key or
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought somebody was speaking to you guys. I thought when you're saying make up the gap, you're talking about like when it underappraises and the buyer has to come in with the difference.
Correct.
Okay. Gotcha. I always thought, oh, well, geez, the seller has to come down to what's approved.
Not anymore. Seller
Not
doesn't
anymore.
care. You don't want it, I'll give it to the next one.
God.
That's right. Move on to the next buyer.
Oh, that's so brutal. I don't know how we can keep up this pace personally.
I don't know. I think it's going to be changing quickly.
Yeah. What, inflation, interest rates, it's all cascading right now.
Well, inflation's helping our business actually, because people would rather sink their money in real estate than keep it in the bank.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that. And people have to pay rent.
Got to pay rent.
Yeah.
I mean, even my leases that I'm doing now, I mean, we're getting, obviously multiple applications, and now it's, I feel like I'm going to put a best and final out for my applications because we're going over my leasing price that I've offered.
Best in
Oh my. Do we don't have the rental moratorium still, right? They got rid of that?
No, there was still one exclusion through March 31st, but basically it is gone. Yes. The remaining exclusion that was implemented was associated with before moving forward with an unlawful detainer action. You gave a 3-day notice, but then you also have to give a 15 or 20-day notice before you can actually proceed with an unlawful detainer action. So that's going to be going away at the end of March, the additional 15 or 20 days. So there's remnants of the moratorium still in place.
And then we still have a 60-day period to still evict them, right?
Well, no, if they don't pay within 3 days, then you can file an unlawful detainer action. So after March 31st, after the 3-day time frame lapses, and assuming the landlord doesn't accept any funds, you can proceed with an unlawful detainer action.
Gotcha.
The additional time now gives them the ability, supposedly, well, the landlord has an obligation to assist somebody with rental assistance and obtaining rental assistance, and they have to be able to prove that to the court right now.
Oh, and that's fun. And then the courts have fees, which I guess the landlord just has to eat that and has to just pay for those fees, or are they passing those fees on?
Yeah, no,
tenants?
sure, if you can recover the money, you're entitled to, but you have to find the tenant.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's great. How's everything, by the way? Happy Tuesday.
Yeah, happy
Beautiful
Tuesday.
outside.
It's Tuesday.
Yes. I know. I can't believe it's almost the end of March too. Next week it'll be, the end of March next week.
Yeah, the end of the first quarter.
Oh, so how's everybody doing on the first quarter?
It's been good so far.
Good. Providing John gets some buyers, into escrow at some point, that's going to help his quarter, right, John?
Well, my quarter will be fine, I think, and it can always be better, but fortunately I have listings to keep me active too.
Good.
You do. It's been, and you probably have 10% of the listings in Orange County.
That's nice to know. Yeah, and I see, when you asked last week, I think about the gas prices, I was out this morning, and I think the cheapest I saw was $5.99.9 out there. I was like, oh my God.
And that's been what, just a few short 3 weeks that we went up over $1 now in just 3 weeks. Crazy.
Yeah, it's expensive.
Yeah, I'm sure LA is much worse than we are.
Yeah, I hear they're over I think over 750 right now in LA.
I was seeing like 850 prices on things. So yeah.
Really?
I don't know how people are handling this.
I don't know either. They're not driving.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're
Other than
going
that-
electric.
Well, I don't know about you guys, but my electric bill's gone up 50%. My gas bill has gone up 50%, and I'm not doing anything different. As a matter of fact, it's like, oh, your bill's higher. And then when I call them out on it and I tell them, hey, this is where I have my thermostat set. This is where, oh, you're in compliance with everything. And then when I talk to a supervisor, they go, oh yeah, the gas prices went up and it went 40% up on us. So we had to pass that cost on to you. And of course we have to make money. So an extra 50%. And I'm like, that's no bueno.
Wow.
So
I admire that person's honesty, huh?
yeah, definitely. So gotta love that.
Well, good morning, everybody. Let's get started. We're going to start off today with Sarah Menchaca. Sarah's going to give us a rate update. Sarah, good morning.
Good morning, Rich. Well, to kind of tag along on this conversation that we've just had with everything going up, so have mortgage rates. So last week, the Fed did meet. They did agree to increase the rates by a quarter. So that's the prime rate. And so that really has an effect on really like your short-term rates, your CDs, credit cards, HELOCs, but it does also directly with everything that's going in the market now, especially with the Fed trying to battle inflation, it did have an impact on our mortgage rates as well. So for the conforming loan limit, again, this is for Orange County up to 647,200. The mortgage rates are now between 4.375 to 4.75 with 0 to 1 points being charged. And this is based on, a 70% loan to value. And then on your high balance for Orange County as well, this is a loan amount of $970,800 and higher. The rates are now ranging between 4.625 to 4.875 with 0 to 1 points being charged.
Okay. I've been talking to Holden about this subject, as a matter of fact, and really, if you want to kind of gauge what's happening with mortgage rates, if you look at the yield on the 10-year Treasury, it moves in a somewhat linear fashion to the yield on the 10-year Treasury. So to give you an idea, at the end of December, the yield on the 10-year Treasury was 1.51%. So you would earn 1.51% if you bought a US Treasury. Today, it's hovering at about 2.37%. So it's up about 85 basis points, which is, and a basis point is 1/100%. So realistically, since December, rates have probably gone up 1%. Is that fair to say, Sarah? So it went from maybe 3.5 to 4.5, or 3 3/4 to 4 3/4.
That is correct, yeah.
Okay. And if you're dealing with somebody in terms of what do they do, whether you're a seller or a buyer, I actually just looked at some numbers and I thought this is very interesting, because in Orange County, $1 million loan is not unusual. At 4.5% today, and that may not be an attainable rate, just the principal and interest payment was $5,067. In December, for that same $1 million loan, it was $4,490. That's a difference of $576 payments have gone up for $1 million loan. So for a $500,000 loan, it's an additional $288 a month. So if you're talking to sellers, you're talking to buyers, I think what is going to affect the market ultimately, we're probably already seeing happen. There's going to be a smaller pool of buyers for any home that's out there, just because of affordability factors. And you can see that. I mean, those are big numbers in terms of a monthly payment as to the increase that we're experiencing right now. And I don't see any reason at this point in time where rates are going to go down. I think maybe the bond market is probably a little oversold in anticipation of what's taking place with the Fed and also overseas, but don't count on them going down anytime soon. It doesn't seem to be the case right now. So use that information if you're trying to get a seller. I don't know if there's any sellers out there that are really having trouble selling their homes, but if you're not pricing appropriately now, knowing that the pool of buyers is smaller, you need to make some adjustments to that. Keep that in mind as we go forward. Sarah, did you want to add anything to that? Does that sound accurate in terms of what we're looking at?
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, just my 2 cents is that, at least some of the buyers that I'm working with, a lot of them are kind of pushed out to their max, right? They want that house that's in that $1 million range, but they're bumping it up to, maybe 1.1, 1.2, just to account for the fact that they may be up against, multiple offers. So we're already kind of pushing their limits. And then now you add in the, rate increase, it may, affect, where they're not going to, qualify for that 1.1 or 1.2. So
Yeah.
I would say any buyers, at this point, maybe want to just, reevaluate their buying power with their current lender, just in case, because, if they've had a pre-approval that's, been done, even 6 months ago, there might be some adjustment that needs to be done on that end.
Yeah, talking about buying power, in my example of $1 million loan at 3.5%, at a rate of 4.5%, that equates to buying power of $890,000 in terms of a loan amount. So that's how much it's been affected by the increase in rates. So that's about $110,000 in terms of the ability of a buyer to qualify for a loan. Oh, just great news, isn't it? Rates have been low for a long time. We've been very fortunate.
Yep, it's the highest increase in the last 3 years. So
Yes, it is. It's
Yeah.
gone up dramatically. Kind
I
of like
have a
gas
question.
prices.
I have a question for you, Sarah.
yes, John.
Are you guys able to lock loans in without a contract for up to a year?
No, we have one lender that will do it, but I believe the longest term is 6 months. And the pricing, I'll be honest, it's not comparable. So, I mean, it's good in the sense that you're locked in and, if rates increase in 6 months, from now, that you're kind of, set into that rate, but I have not heard of a year. Is there a lender that you have that you're aware that does it for a year?
I have a friend that went into real estate. Actually, I talked them into real estate years ago, and their advertisements on social media is, work with us because we'll get you. We have a lender we work with that will lock your loan in and have you approved up to a year. Before you even, have a contract, they'll do that. So I thought that was quite interesting. I don't know because I didn't pursue it with them, but I was just reading their comments or listening to their videos about it.
Hmm.
And I thought,
Well, if you want to,
yeah.
if you want to send me that information, I can take a look at it and see. But I know typically for the one lender that we have that will allow you to lock in for 6 months, it is a pretty high rate.
Okay, now,
And is there a fee associated with that you're paying to lock that rate?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Okay.
then if I have a DU, if you do a DU, is that as good as an approved loan? And what is the things that could cause that to fall apart?
So a DU or an LP is just really an automated approval. So basically what that means is someone is putting in that information into a system and generating, the automated findings. That's either going to say, yes, it's an approved eligible, or no, it's not. So it's, to answer your question, it's not really something that's run by an underwriter. So usually it's, run by either like the loan officer or like the loan processor. So they're taking that information. So I would say that, 9 out of 10 times that information that's being inputted is usually being vetted by either that loan officer or by that loan processor. And if anything would be to come up, it would be addressed at that time, but it's not an actual underwriter approval. I will say now that the market has slowed down a bit, there are lenders out there that will give like a TB determined, underwriter approval, but that is different from an automated approval.
Okay.
When you say what could go wrong on it, is if income was calculated, incorrectly, that could be an issue. If someone was using, a complete average of, W-2 income, commission, bonus income, and just giving that as the income for the findings. And when we do the verification of employment, they're no longer receiving commission income. Potentially there could be a cut in what they use for qualifying income.
Okay.
And John, it's possible that there may not be sufficient documentation and there's reliance on the buyer's verbal representations. So that's a possibility.
And can big purchases affect that too? Like, oh, I don't know, I decided to buy a Tesla today instead.
I mean, yeah, that is true. So, I mean, at any point between when you start the pre-approval process to when you actually close your transaction, you know, the lenders are alerted by anything that's run on the credit or on the borrower, you know, if they were to apply for any new credit, and those would have to be addressed. So, you know, if there was a credit inquiry that showed up, you know, from ABC Auto Financing, you know, they want to know what that inquiry is for. And if they say, you know what, I purchased a new car, then we now have to provide documentation of what that car payment is. So if there's not enough room in their debt to income ratio, then yeah, that could mean that they may not possibly qualify for the loan anymore. So that communication is always very important between the loan officer and the buyer right up front.
And don't spend any money. Don't incur any debt.
Yeah.
At least not while you're trying to buy the house, right, Richard?
After, we don't care, right?
Do it after.
That's right.
Especially, you know, buyers, they get excited, you know, they want to buy their appliances, they want to buy furniture, and they think, oh, it's 0% financing, you know, I'm not going to have to pay anything, or I'm not going to have to pay interest on it. There's still a payment that has to be, you know, calculated. Even if there's like, you know, it's an option where it's like no payment due for the first 12 months, we still have to come up with some type of payment for them. So
That's a good point, Sarah. Thank you for bringing that up. I didn't even think about that. They may think it's not going to be counted against me because I don't have to pay anything right now.
yeah, wait until that day you get confirmation of recording. Wait until right after.
You know, to that point, when I was purchasing, and what I tell my clients, most furniture companies, because you want to buy new furniture with the homes and you get that 0% of that friends and family. What I've done with companies is I will pick out the furnishings and they will hold it for you for usually $100 deposit, not run your credit, and honor the terms once you close escrow, because these furniture companies understand that if they hit your credit, that it will show if they're giving you $10,000, $15,000 worth of credit, that goes against you, plus the 2 or 3 points that it's going to affect for running the credit. So they will do that. They lose nothing. You know, they have $100 that, you know, of your money. That's about it. And then if you never close, you know, you haven't heard anything and you haven't hit your credit.
That's good to know.
Yep, very creative.
Hey, John, I think you were asking Sarah if you have a lender who would lock the rate. Was it with contract or without contract?
Can you repeat that for me?
She said that you have a lender that will lock a rate for up to a year. And must it be under contract, or can you do that without a contract, a to be determined property?
Yeah, what they're claiming is that they are, I don't have the lender, it's a friend of mine, and I'll have to check with them. They're down in Baker Ranch. And they have a lender that you don't have to be under contract, that they will get you an approved locked in rate and loan based on, obviously, once they, you know, run your credit and do all those things for you. And that you can go in with a, you know, fully approved loan that's locked without an address.
Yeah, okay. No, I have a lender who does it with contract up to a year, but for new homes.
Right, with contract.
Yeah.
Typically most lenders do it with contract.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. Any other questions for Sarah? Sarah, excellent job as usual. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rich.
Next, yes, thank you for once again. Next, Tony Bried. Tony is a ZipForm certified trainer, paperless pro certified, RPR certified trainer, and ePro senior technology trainer for Orange County Realtors. Tony,
Hi.
good to see you today. Thanks for attending. Tony's going to be talking about ZipForm Advanced Tools and Tips. And any other questions that you may have.
Exactly. I just want to go over like 2 major advanced tips. One that's a total learning tool. I love talking about that learning tool for you guys. It's called Forms Tutor. I know that I've been getting a ton of calls lately about the new purchase agreement, and people who want to learn it, but they've missed a class at the brokerage or they've missed a class at the board. I want to go over that. And of course, I want to go over another feature about being able to submit offers. So those of you who are listing agents here, you can have offers submitted directly into your ZipForms account by this new feature that they just added in about maybe 3 or 4 months ago. So with that said, thank you, Richard, for having me back here. It's great to see everybody here today. Happy, what is it, March 22nd. We're all enjoying the day. We're all having fun and great lively conversation. For those of you who don't know me, my name's Anthony. I work at Orange County Realtors. Been there now coming up on 20 years. Been there now for a good long time. Started off in the MLS department. Guaranteed I'll speak to everybody regarding rules, regulations, violations, all that fun stuff. Basically, I'm your tech trainer that Richard and Carlos have me come out at least once a month to give you updates and training on all your tools and products. So not only do I train on MLS, but I train on ZipForms, and I even train on lovely fun tech that I know everybody's super enthused about nowadays, right? Right. All right, so what I'm going to do here is we're going to touch on a couple of tools. So I'm going to share my screen if that's possible. Oh, that's been disabled. I think I just need to be made co-host. Right. Nope, not yet. Nope, haven't been. Nope. Can everybody still hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes,
Oh,
you
okay.
should be a co-host now.
All right, so let's try that out. Yep, excellent. All right, so I'm going to share my screen here. And what we're going to do is we're just going to go right into the ZipForms. And one of the tools that I want to touch on first and foremost today is Forms Tutor. Now, I love this tool because what this allows you to do is learn your contracts. Now, Forms Tutor doesn't have access to all the contracts because there are more than 395 plus CAR forms for buying, selling, leasing properties in the state of California. But Forms Tutor does allow for you to access the 36 most commonly used contracts. So maybe you're out in the field, or maybe you're at home and you're sick and you want to learn and you've missed a class here at the office. Maybe Carlos, who just had a contracts class on Monday, you know, you go, well, geez, I missed out on that one. When's your next one? Well, do you want to wait a whole month? Especially nowadays with offers being so vital, we need to be able to be more comfortable in learning our contracts. This is where Forms Tutor is going to help you, because this was created by CAR Legal. And what it does is it explains the contract to you pretty much in full. It's like taking a class, but on your own time. Now, how do we access that? Here within ZipForms, if I'm logged into ZipForms, what I can do is I can move my mouse over to this button over here called TXN Tools. It stands for Transaction Tools. If I click on that button, I get a list of drop-down choices, one of which will say Forms Tutor. If I click on Forms Tutor, I'm redirected back to CAR.org's website. And from here, I'm going to scroll right on down to where it says Forms Tutor, and I'm going to click on this big red button that says Access Forms Tutor. Now, this may require you to re-log back into CAR.org's website, but very easy. We can come down below and we can start looking at contracts. Now, I know everybody's itching to learn the new RPA, right? Because it's still brand new. There's still some nuances about it that we tend to forget, this, that, and the other. Well, all we need to do here is come over towards the right-hand corner to where it says search, click in the box to get our cursor to blink, and just type in RPA. Stands for Residential Purchase Agreement. Now, if you've used Forms Tutor in the past, the Residential Purchase Agreement was just one choice. Because the RPA is now so much bigger, it's 16 pages now versus the 12, they have actually broken down the contract into 4 separate sections: pages 1 through 4, pages 5 through 9, pages 10 through 14, and pages 15 and 16. So now this is a little bit more easily digestible by you, the agent. All you need to do, click on the section you want to learn about. The form is going to open up here, and pretty much the form is going to look as if it would on ZipForms, except we're going to see these little blue dots throughout the entire form. Now, depending on the form, out of all those list of 36 forms, You're going to see these blue dots on every page, every line, every paragraph. Now, what's super cool about this is that if I come over to a section that I want to learn about, just simply click on one of the blue dots next to that section. And now I get a written explanation of that line, of that paragraph, of that page. Now, real quickly, how many people here love to read? I see Richard like, yes, I love to read, but some of you might not, right? Just like your clients, you don't like to read anything. You just want to be told what it is, right? Well, guess what? Here, because I already understand with the contract, it's already tough enough to read the legal read the legal language, but do you want to read the legal explanation? Not necessarily. Simply in this blue window here that's opened up at the top left corner, there's a play button. If you click on the play button, you should hear an audio explanation of that line, of that paragraph, of that page, and it's read verbatim. So this is a great and easy, fun tool to actually learn this entire contract. And if you are not used to the new RPA, honestly, from what I can tell, everything's done in the first 4 pages of this contract. Everything is fully outlined and it's really easy to read. If you just need to know how to explain this stuff to your client, this is the tool to help you do that. Now, I know I get usually one common question, can I email this to my clients, this, that, and the other? Unfortunately not. This is meant as a learning tool for real estate agents only. So this cannot be emailed. Why? Because CAR requires a login to their website. And the only way to have a login is to be a real estate agent. So here, this is a great learning tool for you to sit down with the client at time of signing to then go over the contract. Because the more confident or the more you know about the contract, the more confident you can in explaining the contract to the client at time of signing. Anybody like that? Good. And again, you're not limited to just, the RPA. You could do this for, again, any of the 36 commonly used form. Another form that I definitely would recommend because I don't see a lot of classes on this is the RLA, the Residential Listing Agreement. And again, with this form, what I would definitely do is go through this, definitely pay attention to 2 paragraphs, paragraph 7 and paragraph, I think it's 11 or 14 when it comes to photography. All right, so paragraph 7 is all about clear cooperation and marketing of the property, which is affected by paragraph 7D subsection 1 or 2, which would dictate whether you register a listing or not. And then paragraph 11, I do believe, or I'm sorry, paragraph 14 explains the seller's instructions to you to take photos and videos of the property. Paragraph A especially, because that affects the listing agent and or broker is allowed to take a photo or video of the home. If this paragraph is marked, then we got to submit a copy of this to CRMLS to show why we don't have any pictures in our listings. That's only if it's marked. Are there any questions on forms 2?
So Tony, in regards to section 7 coming soon and the seller exclusion, does it describe to you how to register a listing?
It does not describe how to register a listing. It just says paragraph 7D basically says the seller is instructing you to not market the property at all, either for based on paragraph or subparagraph 1 up until a certain date, no marketing, or subparagraph 2 of D7 that says no marketing at all for the entire listing period.
Okay.
So at that point, but I do have a video on how to register a listing if you're curious. And if you need that video again.
Sure. Would you send it to us?
Yeah, I can do that for sure.
Thank you.
All right. Let's see here. Next thing. Getting offers into your listings or into your transactions. Some of you would probably have seen up until a certain point, because I'm not sure, Richard, if you are allowing your office to do this. You probably have noticed in the MLS that there's a feature in the MLS system called Submit Offer. When you open up a listing, there's a blue button there that allows you to submit an offer directly to the listing agent using the platform called Glide. Now, Glide is a third-party tool that CRMLS has partnered with to allow you to submit offers directly to the listing agents. So you can be right in the MLS, create the purchase agreement, send it out for signatures, and the moment it's done, it's then immediately sent off to the listing agent. Now, as convenient as that is, my problem with Glide since March of last year was that it was purchased by another real estate company called Compass. And from that ceased to be a CAR member benefit at that point because of the data collection that Glide does do. So what do we do about that? I mean, CRMLS is him and hawed about it, and they said, well, geez, Compass promises us that they won't ever use any of that data collection while it's still a member benefit, but who knows what may happen after that if it ceases. So when you think about that, what do you need to do? Well, ZipForms came up with a solution. So if you're a listing agent in the MLS system, or I should say, if you're a listing agent and you've created your transaction in ZipForms, there is a button that allows you to have a link whereby you could share that link with anywhere, whereby if somebody were to click that link, they can now directly email contracts, documents, or whatever directly into the transaction itself. So just to show you what I mean, let's find a transaction that's not a purchase. Here we go. Let's go into a listing transaction. Here at the summary screen, under our list of menu choices here near the top, there is a button here that says email to transaction. This button came about, I want to say, late December of last year. When you click on this button, a little window opens up and it now gives you a link that you can copy and paste. So if, say, Coldwell Banker does not allow for you as an agent to see that submit offer button on anybody's listings to then use Glide, then use this in lieu of that. All you need to do is copy and paste this and put it, say, in your private remarks section. Okay, please submit your offers directly to this link. Put it there. Maybe you create a property website for your listing. Put the link there so that people can start emailing contracts and documents directly into the transaction. So now when a person such as Richard sees that link, he can then click on it and immediately it opens up his email. Now what he can do is just say, offer for your property, as an example, and then maybe write a nice little note. Hey, Tony, here is my offer package for your property on Marguerite.
Hey, Tony,
Yes.
question for you. You said people can email this. Are people agents or anybody that sees this link can email?
Anybody who sees this link. So if you're a lease listing agent, what you could do is have an attachment, say on your property website. The attachment is download the application to rent and then email the application to this link.
But if you're a lease listing agent, you can use the link for Rent Spree and that will automatically get them to Rent Spree and email you the application.
Right. The application will definitely go with the, they're two separate links though, because Rent Spree will have its own CAR application already created and then sent to the landlord or to you through that platform, or you could use this link and any application that they might already have gets immediately placed in your transaction. So here, if I, as an example, if I grab a PDF document and let me just find one real quick here, something that's pretty simple. Where's my ZipForms class? ZipForm class, there we go. And I select a PDF. Whoops. And let me see if I can just click and drag it. There we go. See, I can attach, make attachments and emails. and then I send it off. In about less than 5 minutes, in the documents area, a folder will be automatically created that says inbox. In the inbox folder, if you open it up, we'll have the attachments in here. It'll have a PDF file of the email that was sent to me. It'll have a separate PDF file of any attachments that were in that email. So this is a great way of receiving offers directly into your transaction. And now what you could do is create individual folders and then take them out of the inbox and put them into their own individual folder files. So if you get multiple applications or you get multiple offers, you, instead of going over to where it says add doc, finding on your computer because you downloaded it from your email address, it's automatically sitting right in here in the inbox folder. Now, when I do a Zoom meeting with my client, maybe because they're in Italy or Japan or wherever in the world, now instead of them seeing everything on my computer screen, I can be logged into ZipForms during our Zoom meeting, and now we can go over all the offers because they're all sitting right here in this transaction. Oops. There's the email that was sent. Hey, Tony, here's my offer for your listing. That's one attachment. We go to look at the other attachment. Whoops. And then we can pull that up. So I think this is a really good substitute tool for the submit offers button in the MLS. Anybody try this out now or using this now?
Anybody? Doesn't seem like it.
Doesn't seem like it, right? Because nobody knew about it. ZipForms
You're
didn't even
right.
say, right? But which is why we have the class here. I mean, I happened to discover it the other day, probably about a month and a half ago, and tried it out, and I thought this was a really neat substitution for submit an offer.
So this one
It
does.
is.
This one doesn't give you if you're in there and you use the link, does it bring up that listing like submit offer does?
No, it does not. So in a way, what it does is it puts it back on, say, Carlos to have already written the up the offer, digitally sign it. But now what he could do with this link is email directly into my transaction any and all the documents needed. So he could, with just this link, email directly into the transaction, the offer, proof of funds, earnest money deposit check, and bank statement, right? Which is great because, again, it gets put into that email folder. Now I can move it, put it into an offer one folder as an example. And then Sarah emails me her offer, gets immediately put into that email inbox folder. And then I can make another folder for offer 2, offer 3, so on and so forth. It's way better than my personal email being convoluted with a bazillion different emails for offers.
Okay.
Where I then have to upload it.
Debbie asked a question. I have the same question. Do you get notified when this is put into your ZipForm file?
I do believe so, yes, because in my email, I do get an email that says your transaction, and it names the transaction, has received some documents. And then what I encourage you to do is to log into ZipForms, go into your documents in your transaction, and then there's that folder sitting right in there. So that's, I mean, try it out, see what it, and what's nice is the PDF's in there. You can also digitally sign it. You just got to place the signatures. So really quick and easy way to accept the offer, or put in that offer one folder, the counter offer, write it up the way you want, and then send that along with their purchase agreement, checkboxed, counter offer attached, and then go from there. And now you're countering each other. Does that help?
Yes, it does.
Good. Now, another cool tool here that I want to also show, we talked about this for digital signing in the past. And I know there's always questions about how do you handle a trust or an LLC on a contract? And yes, you want to use a form called the RCSD, Representative Capacity Signature Disclosure, but then what do you do about the contract itself? Now, I do believe that you have to put in the trust name on the form, but how do you get the signer representation to sign for that on that form? There's one really cool thing that you can do here, short of substituting the name during the signing process, and that is done through the parties tool here. So in your transaction, next to where it says summary, there's a choice here called parties. When we click on parties, this will now list all the current parties that have the names written on the contract. Now, what you could do here at this point is say, and let's add a party, say seller 2. And in this case, maybe seller 2 is the Robinson, and then last name Family Trust. Now here we can put all that information in, but in this adding the party to the transaction section, if this is a trust or an LLC, down below there's a choice here that says signing representative. So even though I've marked this person as, or put on the contract, the Robinson Family Trust, down below here, I can now type in who the trust representative is, or the LLC, the officer. So maybe in this case, it's Richard Moore, and then his email, right? And now when I hit save, we've now got the Robinson Family Trust as seller 2. So here on the document itself, like on the agreement, we're going to see here, or we should. Oh, and of course I chose the wrong one. Excellent. That's the purchase. Let's go back to the parties, and this time let's add buyer 1. And then here we're gonna okay. So then when it comes to the contract itself, it's going to have written on the contract the Robinson Family Trust. But when it comes to signing, when we send this out for signatures, and let me see if I've got an address on this so I can get to that next stage. Yes, I do. Excellent. So when it comes to e-signing at this point, and we select the form and we go next, we're going to see here immediately it doesn't say the Robinson Family Trust. It does say the buyer representative or the signer's representative's name. So on the contract, it will have the Robinson Family Trust. Richard Moore is the signer for buyer 1 or buyer 2 or seller 1 or seller 2. Does that help out a lot?
Yes, that does.
So here we can now have their name substituted, but we can still have the printed trust name and now the signer's signature for that trust or LLC. Are there any questions on that?
No, I think that's really helpful.
All right, good. And then do we have time for one more tool?
Yes.
All right. So the last tool we'll talk about is View RPR. Some of you have probably seen and used this tool in the past. Now, RPR stands for Realtor Property Resources, your free NAR member product that allows you to look at tax data information on any property in the United States. Now, this is really a good tool for making transactions for your sellers. Now, you've probably have heard me talk about in the past that when we make a transaction, say for a buyer, there's a tool that I really like a lot called MLS Connect. What that does is it allows you to import MLS listing data from the MLS and put it directly onto your contracts. Again, great if you're representing a buyer or a tenant, because that data that already exists, you can now import in property address, list price, list date, APN number, and of course, listing agent information. But then this is not such a great tool if you're representing a seller, because technically we don't have a listing in the MLS yet until we get a signed listing agreement. So there's technically nothing to import onto our listing agreements. This is where RPR is going to help out. So not only is RPR a great tool to look for properties and create great CMAs and highly data-driven CMAs, but we can now take that property that we're doing a listing presentation at and create a transaction directly into our ZipForms. All we need to do is access RPR. Now we could do that from the MLS or from ZipForms itself by clicking on this tool here, View RPR. Excuse me. Now what this should do is, or what this will now do is take me into the RPR program. In this case, I now have to log back in. And say we look up that property address. And let's just, here, we'll just put in my home address here. And here we've got information about our property. Maybe we've done the CMA, but now at the end of the day, the client goes, you know what, Tony, I really want to list with you. And nowadays, we have access to our mobile tablet devices. We've got our laptops there doing our mobile listing presentations, things like that. And we want to give them this wow factor, and we want things immediately on our contracts. We don't want to spend time in front of the client writing up the contract necessarily, right? We want to create this quickly and easily. So from the property summary in RPR, we can scroll down and there's a button here just off to the right-hand side of the screen that says Transactions ZipForms Edition. Now, all we need to do from here is click on that Connect button. It's now going to ask me, do you want to start a new transaction? I'm going to say yes, start a new transaction. And now I'm going to create one for the listing side. Now, when I say okay, in 3, 2, 1, the transaction has now been officially created in ZipForms. So now when I go back into my ZipForms, I'm now going to be uploaded directly into the transaction that was just created in ZipForms. So we're going to see here the property address. We're going to see here at the summary, information on the property summary report, all ready to be filled in on a contract. So now at this point, you have templates. Maybe you created a listing template for your sellers. Now what I can do is click on the button at the top middle here that says apply a template, find my listing template that I need to apply. And now when I say apply, all the forms have now been added. And on these forms is property data.
That's great.
So here we've got the homeowner's name, the property address, and now all I got to do is fill in the other stuff. And we created that transaction in less than 5 minutes. So you as a real estate agent now with RPR and with MLS Connect can now create your transactions so efficiently and quickly that really, you know, you can now spend more time marketing or doing other things to provide customer service to a client. Are there any questions on this?
Now, that was not a free benefit until recently, right? Isn't there another paid for
RPR
benefit to do something similar to this?
There
actually?
there is another benefit that you would have to pay for.
Right?
It was called, and I don't see it here anymore, called Record Connect.
Yeah, maybe it's gone.
Oh, I think you have to go inside the transaction. So you have to make a transaction now, and then Record Connect is a paid service of about $25, and it basically does exactly what RPR and MLS Connect does, except through one button. So I look at it as for those people who are not realtors, this is a good tool because if you're paying about $1,700 to access ZipForms out because you're an MLS only member, then you're paying a little bit more to be able to do what you as a realtor can do for free. So without spending any extra money. Now, I personally notice here that they also have a Start CMA button here too. So it looks like with ZipForms, you can now create CMAs. So I have to play with this button a little bit more just to see what the CMA reports look like, but just know that you can do that too. Also, listing agents, there is a feature called List Flash and Offer Place. Now, this is a paid service through ZipForms as well. whereby any listing transaction that you create can be uploaded into this little lightning bolt icon so that any agent part of ZipForms, and let me emphasize that, any agent part of ZipForms, which not just encompasses California, but the nation that accesses ZipForms, is notified about your property. And if they're paying them that service, this offer place button allows them from their ZipForms account directly from my transaction to your transaction, submit an offer directly. So there's a lot of cool things here that you guys have access to be able to receive offers and deal with offers just within ZipForms itself. Now,
Tony, to have access to this, must I always log into the broker edition of ZipForms and not just, okay, so either account, it will give them availability.
Correct. I do believe for the list flash and offer place for the individual agent, it's about, I want to say it was $150 about 2 years ago. They might have increased their fees. I don't know. I haven't been told what the new fees are, but this would allow you to push your listing to ZipForms to notify everybody, and then offer place allows anybody to write an offer on any existing listing that's in list place. So, and currently free right now, you can click on the lightning bolt at the top of the screen and you can type in the zip code, say, find me properties within 50 miles, and then this will display those listings that are in the ZipForms platform. And then you can pick and choose at that point.
Wow.
Yeah, it's really interesting what you guys can do. Are there any questions on any of the tools that we touched on today? Anybody like any of the tools?
Yeah, I think it's great.
John, are you going to use any of these tools?
Yeah, the RPR that's great.
Yeah, I love it.
Simplifies everything so much. That's a great feature.
Definitely.
And also the signing ability, right? That under parties, I think that's great.
Yeah, I know that, you know, you guys have dealt with a lot of trust in LLC in the past, and that always seems to come up in a digital signing class. So this party features helps streamline that a lot easier now. Whereas in the past, during the e-signing process at stage 2, we would then have to change the name for the signer. So now you don't have to worry about doing that name.
I have a question that's unrelated to everything you've talked about today. I've had 2 incidences just recently in which somebody has created a listing contract, could be a lease or for sale, and it's associated with a past client. So they went into the past transaction and just used the same document was there. And of course, the form date in one case went back to 2015, another one was 2018. So could you just kind of address that for everybody in terms of what we need to do to be sure we're using the most current forms?
Yeah. So in that case, because I've heard this with a lot of the leases. So what you all want to be careful of is not going into an older transaction, especially if it's a couple of years old, because ZipForms will keep these transactions in your transaction list for up to 7 years before deleting them automatically. So in a way, it's a nice document storage backup system for you as an agent. Now, what you don't want to do is go into an older transaction, click on it, and then when you go to the documents, you're editing the old forms. And you'll know that you're accessing an older form by the date that it was created. Now, unfortunately, here in California, they've got very strict laws that say if a form is written up on an older contract, it may not necessarily be a valid contract at all. So you got to be really super careful. Now, what you want to do in this case is that if you are re-representing an older lease, say maybe you leased out the property a year ago, now the landlord comes back to you and says, Tony, I want you to relist the property, then guess what? You should always create a brand new transaction. And when you go to all forms, you're always accessing the most up-to-date, accurate form out there. One of the many reasons why we love ZipForms Online is that under this all forms section, all the contracts are immediately updated constantly, and CAR updates their contracts twice a year. Now, my understanding this year, under the RPA and the RLA, they're adding another form about the appraisal come June. So look out for that. But it's going to be included in the listing agreement or I should say, it's going to definitely be included in the purchase agreement. I've heard that it may also be included in the listing agreement as well as an extra document. So your contracts are getting deeper and deeper. So if you're accessing an older form, it's not going to have all the updated forms, the complete packets. And of course, it may not even be accepted by escrow or whoever you're working with at that point, like the other agent on the other side. So be mindful of it. Is that kind of where you wanted me to go there?
It is, yes. And if somebody were to copy a transaction in the new transaction, could they delete all the forms and re-add the forms?
Oh yeah, but then
So you could keep the cover sheet. Do you think it would populate all the forms appropriately?
it would, but with the new contracts, you're going to have new different terms. But
Mhm.
the thing that I love about the cover sheet is it does have all the common areas of all the forms. So really, this doesn't change at all too much.
Got it. So you
So
can
if you-
delete the forms and then add new forms, and that would be the way to overcome utilizing past documents.
Exactly.
Okay.
So if you don't know how to copy a transaction, it's really simple. What you want to do is just hover over top of the old transaction that you want to copy. There's a little down arrow that appears in the upper right corner of that transaction. Just click on the down arrow. And then here on the right-hand side, you've got a bunch of choices, one of which says copy. What does it say here? I think they've got a couple extra things. Nope, just copy. When I click copy, I can now rename it. So maybe this time I'm relisting it, but for the new homeowners, Bob and Martha Stewart. But now when I hit save, all those forms, all those documents, all those current terms are right here in this transaction. So now when I go into this and I go to the documents, we're going to see the prior person's information here. So what I now need to do is delete all that out, but we'll notice here on the cover sheet, all I got to do is just rewrite over it.
Okay. Thank you, Tony.
You're welcome.
Very informative.
But
A question, is there a way that you can copy only the cover for the new transaction? And you just bring the information, and then when you populate all the forms, they're gonna use the cover. Is that a way to do that?
There's not a way to copy. Oh, let's see here. Archive, delete, print, save, download. Move is not copy. You're actually literally moving it from this transaction to another transaction. So it's like copying, but you're taking this form and putting it somewhere else. Now, if you take out this form, if there's contract still has their name, that doesn't go away. But I can literally move this from this transaction, and now I get to pick. Oh, and I guess, nope, that's not going to let me do that. Okay. So no, there is no way to copy that without copying the transaction itself.
But if you copy the transaction, then you've copied that RPA that might be an old RPA. So you need to delete that and go back into all forms and put the
then
new forms in there, but keep your transaction cover sheet.
Correct.
Tony, I'm sorry, I have another question. And because this is so common now, when the listing agent receives 20 offers and they're going to respond to 10 of those or 20 of those, is there some eloquent way to replace the names of the buyers?
In the counter offers?
Yeah, within the transaction, because if I have to respond to 20, I have to go back and modify the cover sheet every time, or the contract has to be modified. So it's a dilemma for anybody trying to, and realistically, when we do respond, we should be attaching the contract also to the counteroffer.
Correct. Let me see here. Let's see. Background of the parties.
I haven't found a way, but I do love the summary of offers options that are in ZipForms.
Right.
Yeah, that's a nice form.
Because
And
it
what-
takes the name out and you just have them offer 1, 2, 3 all the way up.
Yeah, I like adding the form that way, but here in the parties section, you can go down to the bottom and what you can do is add other. Under add other, say on the buying side, you can now choose their role or type in their role, listing agent 2, or second offer agent kind of thing, but you're probably going to say listing or buying agent 2, put in their information. That way they're kind of saved in your address book here of the transaction. And then what'll happen is after you do that, and let's just do this as an example. Buyer agent 2, and then Martha, put in her full name, Stewart, email address. Okay. So then what I should see here on the documents is say just the one agent, right? But then when I go to e-sign and I go to select my parties, they will be here as a buyer 2. So what you could essentially do is substitute them. I do believe at that point, what you could do when it came to the counter offer portion is that on the contract itself, let's add in the counter offer just in case. SEO.
But to use the signing part of it, you need the email address, and you typically do not have the email address of those buyers.
No, you wouldn't have them of the buyers, but you would have them of the agent. So what you want to do is, if you add them in as a party, then under your email choice, after you get your clients to sign the counter offer, what you could do is then when you go to send and you choose email, then it's going to give you the entire list of everybody who's a party in the transaction. So if you have buyer 2, buyer 3, buyer 4, buyer 5, the agent's names, then what you can do is select them and email off that signed seller counter offer or seller multiple counter offer to those agents directly. Does that make sense? That might help you a little bit.
But you're still putting the buyer's name on each and every contract and changing each and every contract
But if I'm not representing the buyer, why would I do that?
to make it easier for the buyer's agent.
Well, here's a reason
Why-
why. Just
Why do they get paid commission?
I
I'm
guess
sorry.
this could also be applicable to disclosures. Let's assume we send disclosures out. They're fully signed, of course. The client completes the disclosures, and it takes a lot of time. And then that transaction fails. Now, how do we easily implement the next buyer's names and yet have all those completed disclosures?
There's
without
really
going-
there's really no easy way short of making maybe a copy of the transaction for the second buyer or the third buyer, but I don't think you would do that. I think at that point, what you're probably going to do is you're going to keep all the signed documents for offer 1 in one place, but then you're going to have to then resubstitute the buyer for buyer 2 and their clients. So what you're probably going to be safe in doing is adding them as parties to the transaction. So maybe you type in offer 1 buyer, and their name, their email address, and then create another party, and select their role as buyer 2. Now at that point, you're going to have to put their signature plots or spots on that those disclosure areas or what have you. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but the names of the former buyers are still populating those fields, aren't they? How do you overwrite that?
So what you should be able to do at that point is that when you're in the form and it's got their name on the form, there should be a choice. And of course, I'm not in a form here. There should be a choice that when you select the person, there should be a drop down choice at that point if there's multiple people for this role. that I can
see.
click on that and select them from my list. Or I change their role. Buyer 1 now, buyer 2 now, and make the original buyer 1, buyer 2, just take out their roles. And that may be able to substitute that choice. I'll have to play with that a little bit more,
Okay. All right.
but I'll get you that. Now, to get disclosures back and forth quickly and easily, back under the parties section of the transaction, there is a choice here called share. So what I can do is I can now give access to a public share, basically giving them a link and choosing what PDF files the people are able to access. So if I have got the signed disclosures here, what I can now do is just simply select those PDF files. And then when I hit save, this link here, I can now copy and paste this link to the other agent. And now they have access to all 48 mandatory disclosures that they can now download all those documents, upload them into their transaction, get them signed, and then they can create a share back to me. And now I've got their signed offer packet of disclosures.
Okay, I like it.
But there's no names on here. I mean, short
Yeah.
of my sellers.
Well,
Yeah.
does anyone have any other questions for Tony? No, that was good, Tony. That was
Well,
excellent.
thank you. Sorry, we went over by 2 minutes. I'm sorry.
No, there are a lot of questions today. That was certainly helpful for me.
Well,
All
thank
right.
you,
Well,
guys.
hey, thank you, Sarah. Appreciate it. Tony, thank you so much. And it's certainly good to see everyone. And we will see you next week. Anyone have any further questions before we move on? Nope. Okay. Thanks again, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Have a great day.
You too. Bye.